Hi everybody, my name is Kathy Coyle. I'm a GS-11 Instructional Systems Specialist assigned to Joint Base San Antonio, Lackland. My job as a course manager for the Advanced Security Forces Training is to take the information our subject matter experts write for their course and ensure that our lesson plans, study guides, and tests are educationally sound. It's important that our instructors have top quality information and that our students are taking tests, that are asking questions, that our instructors are teaching. Several months ago, I had the opportunity to read a terrific book called Warnings Unheeded, Twin Tragedies at Fairchild Air Force Base. This book outlines two horrific events that occurred at Fairchild Air Force Base 2 weeks apart. The first was a lone gunman attack that occurred at the base hospital. The second incident, which is the one I'll be talking about, was a fatal B-52 crash during a practice for an air show. They often say that the culture of the organization works from the leader down. But I hope I can depict the fact that the culture of this organization came from the pilot himself and worked its way up to where there was zero leadership that could have prevented this fatality. In the course of 3 years, there were 3 different dangerous flying acts by this pilot. I should add that this pilot was the chief of Sandoval, and his job was to oversee all of the pilots to ensure that they are doing their job the way they should be doing it. The first incident occurred in '94 while he was practicing for an air show. During this practice, this pilot took a B-52 at a 360-degree angle and 3/4 of the way around the airstrip at a 90-degree pitch. His left wing clipped a power line and the aircraft crashed. Next, at another air show, this individual also once again flew at a dangerously low altitude, sometimes 200 feet above the ground, with 60-degree pitch turns that a B-52 is just not built to maintain. One other time, he was planning a flyover for a change of command ceremony, and in the audience was the wing commander and the deputy commander for operations. While neither one of these trained pilots saw the incident, several members on the ground, family and friends, witnessed it, and some even took videotape of the incident. When approached with the opportunity to view a video, the director of operations and the commander flatly refused. What happens here is in 3 different safety incidents that occurred within a 3-year period, the enlisted aircrew and the junior pilots of this organization repeatedly went to leadership to report these dangerous flying maneuvers. What kind of leadership is that? I can't even call it laissez-faire because there was no caring, there was no direction and then ignored. These trained pilots who run this organization knew of several different occasions where this B-52 pilot took dangerous risks. There was even one incident while this pilot was flying through, I would want to say like a mountainous area with a photographer. In order to get this quality picture, he flew at such an angle to show up for this reporter that he barely made it up before he almost crashed into the side of a mountain. The unfortunate thing about this incident is repeated requests from junior crew members, fellow pilots who flew with him, all begged that this man be grounded. There were 7 total instances spanning several years where there were reports that this pilot flew dangerously, putting many, many other people at risk. There was one time in the organization when junior crew members said, flat out, I refuse to fly with this pilot even when ordered to. What does that take in an organization when people are willing to accept punishment for insubordination rather than fly with a pilot? Director of operations, wing commander, assistant deputy director of operations, all these people knew of the dangerous flying stunts done by this pilot. The funny thing is, as chief of Sandoval, he evaluates other pilots to ensure that they're following regulations. All the maneuvers that this pilot was taking were against technical orders and FAA regulations. Every pilot in his chain of command knew that he was violating technical orders and FAA regulations. So what does it take for junior enlisted personnel and junior officer crew members to be heard? Well, I'll tell you what, they stopped being heard because they stopped making complaints. They just assumed that the culture of this organization was that this man was untouchable. He was praised as being the best pilot on base and probably the wing, and even at times he was praised as being probably the best B-52 pilot in the Air Force. They had no fight. What can they possibly do to defend themselves? When you have video evidence that refuses to be watched, when you have personnel who repeatedly report the individual, when there's zero proof that any type of reprimand, whether it be verbal or written or formal, ever took place, you have an organization whose culture has now been affected. Like I said, normally, culture comes from the top. Your commander set the tone for the rest of the organization to follow. But this didn't happen here. We had one pilot create the culture, and that was it. It's disheartening to know that one of the pilots that died in this aircraft accident was the first to beg his supervisors to ground this pilot. Unfortunately, that never happened. You need leaders to lead, and you need leaders to be heard, and leaders need to be trusted by their subordinates and those who work underneath them. If only one of these commanders had taken the time to ground this pilot, 4 people would be alive, and 4 families would have their fathers, brothers, or husbands. I want to thank you all very much for taking this time to listen to me, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.